This is Lou Antonio. You're listening to TV Confidential.
Here we come, walking down the street. We get the funniest looks from everyone we meet.
Ed Robertson, along with Tony Figueroa and Donna Allen, welcome you back to TV Confidential, radio talk show about television, and is happy to welcome back our friend Chuck Harter. Chuck's books on film and television include Mr. Novak, an acclaimed television series, which is available through our friends at Bear Manor Media. Chuck is also a musician and pop culture consultant. His other books include Superboy and Super Pup, The Lost Videos, Johnny Ray, 1952, The Year of the Atomic Ray, and Little Elf, a celebration of Harry Langdon, which Chuck co-authored with Michael J. Hayes. Chuck wrote the acclaimed television documentary, Hey, Hey, We're the Monkees, which aired on the Disney Channel some years back. He also has performed in venues throughout Los Angeles and other parts of the country. For a time, Chuck was a member of the Missing Links, a Monkees tribute band. So, Chuck is amazed about that himself. But we're going to spend the next hour or so talking about the Monkees because Chuck not only wrote the documentary that aired on the Disney Channel. Chuck spent, I don't know, about a year of his life. I mean, he pretty much talked to everybody who is somebody in the world of the Monkees phenomenon, including Mike, Peter, Micky, and David. And he is the most knowledgeable Monkees guy ever. So we're happy to have him on our show. Chuck, welcome back.
Thank you, Ed. It's nice to be here and monkey around.
So, you know, there are many ways to start this conversation, but before you came over, I was telling Tony and Donna, you can never talk about the Monkees as a thing. They always come up into two entities. There's the show and there's the band. Even though they both have a symbiotic relationship, you always have this, it's the show and the band. But what's interesting, and I didn't realize this, is if you go to any bookstore or you go to Amazon and look up and find books on the Monkees, they're always in the music section, not the TV section.
That's right.
That's significant.
Yeah, I think so. And really the Monkees were two different things. They were a television show, a sitcom with comic actors performing in the medium of television. They were also a band who recorded records and toured. And I'll say this, it's not unfortunately popular these days, but I think the Monkees' main contribution to pop culture is not the records or their pop stardom, but the television series. And a few guys, and we'll talk about them later, who are the prime movers in keeping the Monkees' legacy going or established or whatever, their Monkees is first the musicians and the performing artists, then the TV show. And I think that's unfortunate. I mean, it's odd. About all the books on the Monkees, there's not been one on the television show. It's always part of their big pop phenomena or the music or the records. Oh, yeah, and here's the TV show, and here's Head, the movie they did, and so forth. But the TV show is great. It was innovative. It's one of the best shows of the 60s. It won an Emmy. And it's really remarkable when you can see them now. And they just came out on Blu-ray a couple years ago, and a whole new audience, sold well. Kids are getting into it, and the appeal of their TV show is everlasting.
I think you look at the Monkees, and you can see their influence on music videos, MTV, stuff like that as well. So, I would have to agree that the TV show was very groundbreaking and innovative and all of that. But why do you think that the show does not get the props that it deserves for its contribution to television but to television, music television?
Well, I think it does get the props, as you say, but again, and I might as well say it now, two guys are really responsible for resurrecting the Monkees' reputation. And the first one in the early 70s was Harold Bronson, who was one of the co-founders of Rhino Records, and he began writing articles that their music was valid, that the pop records were as good as any other pop records in the 60s. He then formed Rhino Records, and in the 80s reissued all of the CDs, well, albums in those days, but then the CDs, and really promoted the best Monkees recordings are as good as the Turtles or the Beach Boys or the other 60s pop groups. Then in the 90s, another guy came along, Andrew Sandoval, and his Monkees, again, are number one, the musicians. And he started doing all these great CD reissues, and he, in fact, manages Mike and Micky now going out. He's still heavily involved with them as performing artist. So the resurrected legacy is kind of Monkees really were good pop star record people. Oh, yeah, and they had a funny show, too. And I think that's a shame.
Should it be the other way around? Or should
it should be both, because that's part of it. I mean, in the documentary, Nesmith says, was it a recording act? Was it a TV show? It was neither and a little of both. And he's right.
Could you have had one without the other?
No, I don't think so. I think a great thing about the Monkees is that since the Partridge Family or other type TV shows with musicians have never been as good, haven't really had the props for recordings. I mean, the Partridge Family made a couple of good singles, or actually it was David Cassidy and People or whatever. The only thing close to the Monkees that ever really happened on the same level was Spinal Tap, where you had a movie with comic actors playing musicians who recorded and toured. They did the whole thing. But no, if the Monkees had not made the records, I don't think the sitcom would have gone. And on the other hand, the sitcom helped propel the records into being big, or made them big pop stars. It was both.
And for me personally, and I think for a lot of people who grew up watching, when it was on NBC and then later on, Saturday mornings, there are certain songs that when you hear them, you cannot help but think of the show, or particularly the romp that they accompanied.
Right.
And for me, one of my favorite Monkee songs still to this day is Girl I Knew Somewhere. And whenever I hear that, I always think of the scene between Davy and Theo Marcuse in the episode Royal Flush, where the climactic scene is the duel. And at least in the version that was reran when the show went into syndication, they play Girl I Knew Somewhere. So I always associate that song with that scene. It's one of my favorite scenes of the show and one of the best episodes.
Well, I think and I'm sure a lot of others too, when you hear Daydream Believer, you can't help but visualize the guys clowning around.
Yeah.
Because you could tell that they're not actually...
And that psychedelic set.
That psychedelic set that... Davy's doing some sort of early version of moonwalking into the... Yeah.
And Davy's wearing the George Harrison shirt, So.
Yeah, and Micky is trying to play the tambourine and missing, and you can tell that they're just really goofing around.
Yeah.
But you can't listen to that song without having that particular image, and it's a beautiful song. And I think it stands the test of time. But, you do get those visuals when you go there. But kind of going in that because, I guess you're right that as the 80s and 90s progressed, there was more of a defensive, no, they're legit. They're a real band. They're, that seemed to be... Or somebody trying to say the opposite.
Well, no, that's very true. And two things on that. Nesmith, again, of all people, who I think really understood or understands the least of what the Monkees is, and he's admitted it, he said, and he was in a cynical mood, which he can be at some point, he said, most of the Monkees, there's some great records, but most of it is just average recordings. But when they're matched up with the visuals from the TV show, they become electric.
Yeah.
And I said, okay, you're a little overstating the case, but yes, that's true. Yeah. And the Monkees have had several comebacks, but the greatest one was in '86 when MTV ran episodes for 48 hours or whatever it was in the era of music videos. Wham! Instant new audience, instant legitimacy. The records became reissued. Oh my God, look how fun they are. They reunited and did 300 cities. And
they tried to do the new Monkees.
Well, that was... Less said.
Yes, we will not bring that up.
No, but in the interest of full disclosure, that
that was a cynical attempt that bombed rather quickly. But that's the thing. And in the early '70s, it was either James Taylor singer-songwriters or Deep Purple hard rock, or the Monkees were disposable pop stars whose time had ended. The new idol was Bobby Sherman. Davy Jones is history. They're all history. Nesmith, a little bit. He's doing some good country rock, but he couldn't make it go because he's just a monkey. And then all of a sudden, with Harold Bronson pushing it in the late 70s, wait a minute, and the shows kept being rerun. And then in the 80s, it exploded, and it's been going ever since.
Chuck Harter is with us, along with Tony Figueroa and Donna Allen, as we devote this hour to the history of the Monkees and their impact on music and television. Chuck wrote the acclaimed documentary, Hey, Hey, We're the Monkees, which originally aired on the Disney Channel. I'm going to jump ahead a little bit, but when you talk about the key role that Bronson and Sandoval played in resurrecting, creating this renaissance, and really making possible the last 30 years of the Monkees' history and keeping them part of the culture, it brings up a point that you said to me off mic. One of the reasons why the group ended as quickly as it did is because once they parted ways, or let's just say once they forced out Kirshner, they had no strong management to guide them. And that led, we'll get into that a little bit later, but ironically, it was the two forces at Rhino that basically became their management, or at least the keeper of the flame, and made everything possible.
Yeah, that's very true. And the Monkees, again, it's a fascinating story because you had four guys who had almost nothing in common. Nesmith said it's like a sports team with a great baseball player, a great basketball player, a great bowler, and a great tennis player. Boom! And they took these four guys, and within 6 months, they were as big or bigger than the Beatles. They were thrown right into the hurricane, and it was insanity. It was just 24/7 insanity. So in cases without a manager, each guy had his sycophants telling me, you're the one, you don't need them, you're the star. And I think they simply just burned out in a couple of years. They did. Peter said it probably took 5 years off our lives, that 3 or 4 years, because it was so intense.
Was that fandom planned, or was that a surprise that they got so big so fast?
Absolutely a surprise. And the Monkees, prior to the Monkees, rock music and TV at best had been maybe the Ozzie and Harriet show, where at the end Ricky Nelson would sing a 3-minute tune and became an Elvis, more or less. But it wasn't the 60s. That's the 50s into the 60s. It's now the mid-60s. The medium is the message, Marshall McLuhan, all that sort of thing. And it just... and so all of a sudden... So the Monkees, this is a fallacy that I think the naive Monkee fans think, is they were just four fun-loving guys who lived in the house and loved each other, and that's not true. They were almost like they were in a combat unit in Vietnam. They were in the Army, they worked together, they were a team, and then when it started fumbling, they all went their separate ways, and that's what's odd about it. So they shared the experience, and they still do, at least now 2 of them. But that was the thing. It unbelievable pressures. Jones would tell me he said, I didn't sleep for days, or just I couldn't go anywhere without 1,000 girls trying to rip my clothes off, or just, Plus, they're getting, you guys suck. You guys are fake. You guys, it's all the promotion. You're not real. You don't deserve your talent. What?
On that note, because we were having this conversation before you arrived, I think it's horrible that the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame still hasn't acknowledged them. If they want to keep out the Archies, fine. But
I'll tell you.
But and please, tell me if I'm right or I'm wrong in my perception, right. Because it's almost like they are deliberately keeping them out, as if they did something. They're not like the Pete Rose. Sorry, Donna, she's from Cincinnati. Of rock and roll.
Well, it's been nice talking to you.
They are. People are still, for whatever criteria. It's not like you keep a rock and roller out of the Hall of Fame for bad behavior.
No, here's the story on that. This is a great one. They absolutely deserve to go in.
So does Spinal Tap, I guess, from you. Yeah.
Well, a lot of groups do. A certain former editor of Rolling Stone, who I will not dignify by name, who is in charge of that now, doesn't like pop music or 60s pop hit bands. They're not real. They're not the Laurel Canyon hippies of the 70s or so forth. They're not Neil Young or all that. So, unfortunately, unless a group was a Beach Boys or a Lovin' Spoonful or a Young Rascals who had someone behind them, or Tom Hanks got the Dave Clark Five in, or that kind of thing, the Monkees aren't going to get in. Now, in early 2000, and hopefully we can talk a little bit more about this.
This is the Chuck Harter show. We'll talk about whatever.
All right, well, okay, that's fine. But anyway, I spent a week with Jones at his farm in Beaverton, Pennsylvania, and I can probably repeat about a third of what happened. But off mic later, I'll tell you the better stuff. But one of the best things that happened was when they toured England in 97, the four of them, they did 12 shows. Davy arranged for a guy to go over and videotape 7 of the shows. Mm-hmm. And so I guess he'd sent the tapes to Jones, but he never watched them. So I was there, and I had the best show of the 7 with me. So one night we were sitting there, and I said, I want to put something on. And the night before, we'd hit it pretty hard, so we were rather mellow that night. So he had a big screen TV and speakers, and so I put it on, and we sat there hoisting and rolling, watching it, and as it went on, he was just, man, we're a real band, man. No, listen to this. And so he stops the tape a couple. He says, stop the tape, man. Stop the tape, man. Yeah, all right. And I go, what? He goes, where's my phone book, man? And he gets the phone book, and Dolenz. Hey, Micky, man. And none of the other 3 were home, but he left messages. Micky, man, I'm watching this in 97. We're a real band, man. To hell with the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame. We should be in there. I want to put this on a film and show it in front, man. We're great. Call me back, man. Right? And a little later, Peter, man, I just saw you. Oh, my God, we were incredible. Mike, oh, my God, you actually were alive at that show. You woke up for that one. Oh, my God, you've got to call me back. Oh, my God, it's amazing. Okay, go run it some more. Mm-hmm. So there you have it. But it was great to watch him watch the Monkees.
Wow.
Right? Mm-hmm. And he went crazy, and I was so happy I was able to do that, man. Isn't that something?
That is something.
Chuck Harter is with us. Chuck Harter, Monkees historian, writer of the Disney Channel documentary, Hey, We're the Monkees. Chuck Harter, human sound effects machine. Let's not forget.
That's right, man.
Can you use Sammy saying man, too? Or?
Yeah, well, man.
Yes, okay. That's one of the...
Who can make a sunrise? Perhaps next time.
Chuck's other books, contributions to pop culture include Mr. Novak, an acclaimed television series, which is available in hardcover, paperback, and for the Kindle at Amazon, BearManorMedia.com, wherever books are sold online. The website is Mr. Novak.
Sorry, man. MrNovak.com. Sorry, I was in Monkey Land. Now I'm in high school. Let me get back to Monkey Land.
We're talking about the height of craziness, 67 going into 68, after the first season, after the tour, where they went all over the place to Japan and Australia. And then when they came back to do the second season, I was talking to my brother about this the other night. And he made a very good point. He said, one thing they did that the Beatles did not do and is the fact that they did what they did doing episodic television, which is a totally different art form.
That's right.
If you can call it an art form.
Yeah.
The fact it was, there's 5 or 6 days to shoot one show. And so they would go from, and considering how many setups they did, because it was such a visual show, and they would have probably 10 times more cuts.
That's right.
Than the typical network sitcom.
I think they were closer, maybe to like Laugh-In.
Yeah.
For the type of cuts, as opposed to.
It's a very
as
good
opposed to,
comparison.
let's say, like the Munsters.
Yeah. So they were doing that at a time when you were shooting 30 shows a year, and so to do that and to keep up the pace that they did, I mean, the Beatles could not say that.
Well, no, and the Monkees, Jones told me this too. He said just for the longest time it was 6 a.m. till 6, filming 5-6 days a week, record at night on the weeknights, gig on the weekend. So I said, did you ever have a day off? He said, occasionally. What did you do? I slept. And that's what happens to pop phenomena.
I can believe it.
And the Spice Girls were massive for their 2 years. They said that if we had a day off in 2 months, we just slept through exhaustion. Because you got to go constantly. Yeah. Plus your pop band, photos, interviews, pictures. it just never stops. And the Beatles, and the other comparison that's interesting is in those days, the Beatles would do half hour, 25 minutes. The Monkees, when they toured in 67, did a full hour show. They had movies behind them, which was innovative, lighting effects, costume changes. They came out and did solo spots. They put on a full hour show where any of the other rock bands of the day, Rolling Stones or whoever, just burped them out in 30 minutes and ran. So they were innovative in that respect, which means, are they a real band? Well, yes, they are. Okay, so that's always been the case. So I think one of the best things in the 80s when all of the resurgence came in and the records reissued and this and that, oh, yeah, they do play. They did play. And it's now, I think, there's probably still some people, oh, they didn't play their own instruments or whatever it is. But that is so much less than it was in the past.
Oh, yeah.
That they've gotten their due.
Well, you think the concerts help that so the
Absolutely.
audience seated there can actually see them play?
Right,
remember,
and they've been touring forever, 80s, 90s, and now.
And remember what we bring up continually on this show, and they were touring, there was no internet.
That's right.
No monitors either.
No monitors.
So they had to walk out into 10,000 screaming girls, which is the equivalent is standing next to a jet engine going off. So you can't hear anything.
Yeah.
You just have to kind of watch each other.
Chuck interviewed all four of the Monkees for the Disney Channel documentary, and one of the things that Micky told you, speaking about that craziness when they were doing the live shows, is in some places it was so loud you couldn't hear anything, so he would watch Mike's feet.
Right.
Basically, Mike's foot was
to keep time.
To keep time.
Right.
Wow. And there was one episode of the show was a concert show.
Yeah.
Which is really cool when you look back at it now.
Yeah, and they do grunge garage rock versions of their hits because, and at least up till then, it was all top session guys. There were 3 or 4 guitar tracks and piano and they've got a guitar, bass, and drum and a guy hitting a tambourine. So they did scaled down grunge versions of what they did. And that's why in 97, when they played England, the first half of the show was the 4 of them. The second half of the show was half backing musicians and them doing the later material. It was wonderful. And it was just astounding.
Chuck Harter is with us, along with Tony Figueroa and Donna Allen, as we devote this hour to the history of the Monkees and their impact on music and television. We'll take a quick time out, then we'll continue our conversation with Chuck here on TV Confidential.
TV Confidential is now on Stitcher. Listen to us on demand every week and on your iPhone, Android phone, Kindle Fire, and other portable listening devices. Stitcher Smart Radio, the smarter way to listen to radio. Find it in your app store or at Stitcher.com.
Ham Cam Caricatures will keep the fun rolling at your next party, convention, or event through a live video feed. As friends or colleagues gather around the webcam, I can see them on my screen, and they can view my caricatures come to life on their own screen. The completed black and white drawing will then be emailed to you to print out. Pricing and details are at hamcamcaricatures.com. That's HAMCAMCARICATURES.com.
Buying or selling a home can be one of the most stressful things we'll ever do in life. But it doesn't have to be. And no one knows better than our friends at Front Porch Realty Group. They're a community of realtors serving the Northern Bay Area of California that cares about their clients as individuals first and foremost. Whether you're a first-time buyer or looking to lease or sell your property in the Bay Area, Front Porch Realty Group will help you through this important transition by providing you with the right information for your situation while lessening the pain. They also work with a network of realtors throughout California who provide the same high caliber of customer service. Call Front Porch Realty Group at 415-886-7411 for a realtor referral near you. You can also visit their website, frontporchrealtygroup.com, for more information on the services they provide, including upcoming workshops and seminars. For more information, call 415-886-7411 or visit frontporchrealtygroup.com. Front Porch Realty Group. They'll find the solution that works best for you.
Uber is the mobile app that connects you with a driver for immediate transportation. Request a ride at the tap of a button and you have a driver curbside in minutes. You can choose to be driven in a black car, SUV, or you can choose UberX, the low-cost Uber for a ride in a hybrid or mid-range car. Payment is seamless and cashless. Billed to your card on file with no need to tip. Enter the promo code TV Confidential after you download the app to receive a free first ride up to $20. For more information, go to get.uber.com/go/TV Confidential.
If you've listened to TV Confidential and like what you've heard, please consider supporting our efforts by becoming a patron of our show through Patreon. It's easy to do and costs as little as $1 a month. For more information, go to patreon.com/TV Confidential or click the Patreon button on the home page at tvconfidential.net.